There is one ingredient. I've been studying this my whole life. I've had 3 marvelous careers as a coach, as a business executive, and for 21 years as a speaker. And all that time, the thing that's fascinated me is, how do you do that? How do you move from good to great? And there's one ingredient after all that time that's absolutely clear to me, that without which there has never been greatness. Without this ingredient, there is no way that we are going to move to the level of really playing to win. And you know what that key ingredient is to make that breakthrough from good to great? It's inspiration. Inspiration. There's never greatness without inspiration. How important is inspiration? Well, I like to think of it in terms of its opposite, very practically. If you're not inspiring, well, you're on the way to expiring, okay? And so my inspiration today comes from one of my greatest teachers. He also happens to be the man that wrote the foreword to my first book, and his name was John Wooden. Now, who in this room knows who John Wooden is? Wow, that's really cool. If you don't know, a lot of people don't know him anymore. We lost Coach Wooden. John Wooden was the greatest college basketball coach in U.S. basketball history. And we lost him 3 years ago, almost at the age of 99. To give you an idea, he was definitely the Microsoft of basketball. His teams at UCLA won 10 national championships. Now, to give you perspective, no other coach in history has won more than 5. He won 10 in 12 years. He would also have been the first one to tell you he didn't win any in the first 17 years of his career. He always used to say, it's what you learn after you know everything that makes the difference. And for those who could care less about basketball, let me tell you what was better about John Wooden. Better father, better husband, better person than he was a coach. And one of the great gifts of my life was he was my friend. And when I first met him many, many years ago, I was running a very large training company. And I thought, since I had people all around North America at that time who were teaching team building and personal development, I thought, what would be better than to interview the greatest coach in history? I grew up really admiring the way he treated people with dignity and respect. So I thought, what if I could interview him, share his ideas, figure out how he thought that might be a little different than the way others thought, share it with my team so they could model it. Well, I knew where he lived in Encino, California. I called up on the phone. He answered the phone. Now, I got to tell you, I was not real ready for that. I stumbled, blumbled, I drooled a little bit, finally got out what I wanted to do to come and interview him, and this gracious, wonderful, kind man said, sure, come on over. And so I drove to his home in Encino, California. He lived very modestly, and I sat down in the living room with this living legend and got to ask him all these questions I always wanted to ask him. And one question that I asked him that day is at the heart of what the inspiration is behind the winner's mindset. And it's a question that everyone in this room should be passionate about. And we've got to get passionate about it to really play to win. And it's a very, very simple, basic question. I asked him, Coach, what's the difference between a good team and a great team? What's the difference between a good team and a great team? Because that's what we're working towards, for Microsoft operations to explode to an even higher level of greatness that really leads the enterprise. Well, he kind of surprised me with his first answer, because as you're going to find out later on in this session, I have a background in coaching. And some of you may have the same idea. I thought the first thing he'd say would be it starts with recruiting and talent. You got to have the talent to make it happen. The first thing he said to me was, Brian, you know, it doesn't have much to do with recruiting and talent. He said, there are no overachievers. We are all underachievers. And I thought about it and I said, what a brilliant perspective for somebody who has accomplished more than anybody ever in his field, for all of us to model. I don't want to be an overachiever. Why? Because it means I have so little room to get better. Every day I want to be a better dad. Every day I want to be a better husband. Every day I want to do better for you all the way through. And so he really got my attention with that answer. The second thing that he said really caught my attention, should absolutely capture yours. He said, you know, the difference between a good team and a great team, he says, Brian, when it really comes down to it, when you really think about it, all right, it's the same difference between, all right, a good parent and a great parent. The same difference between a good company and a great company. The same difference between a good manager and a great manager. And he said, now he had my undivided attention. He said, Brian, after a lifetime of working with people, which is, never forget, you say you're in the technology business, you're in the people business. It's about people that use technology. And he said, after a lifetime of working with people, it became crystal clear to him that the difference that caused you to break through from good to great was the difference between two little words. He said, on good or average teams, good or average managers, good or average team players, good or average parents, he said all of those people are willing to support each other and the greater good of the team. And the key word he used was willing. Now, I must tell you, I always thought willing is a really good word. It's way better than unwilling. All right? But then he described it in a way that many of you may be able to kind of relate to. He says, willing is about the same spirit and attitude with which a teenager cleans their room. Yeah, they'll do it because they're really hopeful that they're going to eat this week, okay? But they're not excited about it. He said on a great team, a great parent, a great leader, a great manager, a great operations team. He says all of those people are absolutely eager to do whatever it takes. No job is too big, no job is too small, no job starts too early or ends too late. He said it's the difference between being willing and being eager that gets you to that next level. Now, as soon as he said it, I'm sort of a visual guy, and I got this picture in my mind. I invented something to this day I still call the eager meter. All right, which always makes me think of Beaver Cleaver, tells you my generation, the eager meter. And I realized that every human being on this planet, in the same way that you have a head and a heart, you have an eager meter. In fact, would everybody do something right now? Kind of silly, but would you just point to yourself? Just point to yourself. Now, I have done this around the world for the last, 21 years, probably at least 500,000 people. I can tell you, I can count on two hands the number of people that I've ever seen point up here. Where you pointed is where your eager meter is. It's in your heart, it's in your center, it's in your gut. All right, and here's the most beautiful truth about your eager meter, whether you like it or not, it's the truth. You are 100% in charge of your eager meter. In other words, nobody can ever give up for you. In other words, nobody else controls your own faith and your own hope.